Welcome back, Endgame community. Thanks for joining us for more must-have wide receivers. I'm going to tell you some of the receivers we're targeting each and every draft, and we do a lot of them, but these are some of the guys we're definitely going to keep our eye on and try to grab as much as possible. Before we get started, don't forget to check the description below. You're going to see links to our Discord server. Join us and talk fantasy football all off-season and during the regular season. And why not join in one of our mock drafts? We do 3 times a week, all throughout the off season, so there's still time left to join. All right, let's get to our must-have wide receivers part 2. Chris, start us off.
Well, if you watched our must-have players, I talked about a quarterback for the Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford. I talked up that offense a lot, and the wide receiver I'm targeting in this offense more often than not is Robert Woods, because I love Cooper Kupp. I think they're both going to have monster years, but I just think what Robert Woods does for this offense gives him a little bit more upside over Cooper Kupp. Again, I think this is going to be at worst a top 10 NFL offense, if not a top 5 offense. So I think both Woods and Kupp are going to have monster years. But like I said, I just think the routes that he runs, the way they use him on end arounds near the goal line, things like that, I think gives him just a little bit more upside than Cooper Kupp. But again, like them both a lot. Love Robert Woods. Get him every chance I can.
Well, it's funny you pick Woods. My first must-have receiver is Cooper Kupp. So everything you said, I echo that sentiment. This is definitely going to be an explosive offense, especially in the pass game. Unfortunately, Cam Akers out for the season. That just means there's going to be more volume for all the receivers, more targets to go around. They're going to really lean on Stafford. Now, Kupp and Woods both really high-end wide receiver 2 types as it is. We'll see if they can sneak even higher in the rankings. But just last year, Cooper Kupp was 7th in the league among all wide receivers in receptions per game. That number could go up. We'll see. But even if it doesn't, again, this is a guy who's absolutely safe as can be. Kupp versus Woods, toss a coin. I just get the gut feeling that Kupp is going to get a few more targets, might become the favorite of Matt Stafford based on the way he runs routes and gets separation. He just always seems to be open, and when he is open, he always catches the ball. So, Kupp, Woods, you can't go wrong with either one. Those are guys we definitely feel you must have as your wide receiver 2. But let's keep going. Give me another wide receiver, or maybe somebody even deeper than wide receiver 2 type that you think you must have this year.
Well, this guy I think will finish as a wide receiver 2. But because of an injury, he's kind of being discounted as more of a wide receiver 4. And that's Courtland Sutton, who I've been talking up all off season. Then early in camp, we saw a video of him running and it didn't look great. And I started to back off a little bit. But now we're hearing reports out of camp that he looks amazing. He looks close to 100%, should be ready to go week 1. So I'm back on the Courtland Sutton train. But not only am I on the Courtland Sutton train, I am all aboard the Drew Lock train. Let's go. Let's make Drew Lock happen this year, because I think if Drew Lock is a quarterback, that's going to be massive for Courtland Sutton. I know everybody likes Jerry Jeudy, second-year breakout potential. I like him too. But I think Jerry Jeudy needs an accurate thrower, right? He's not a big, 6+ guy, huge body guy with, a massive catch radius like Courtland Sutton is. Courtland Sutton doesn't need the ball to be put on him. Just get it somewhere around him. He can go up and get it. And that's what Drew Lock can do. Drew Lock's not the most accurate, but he can fling it. He can throw it. He can sling it in there if he needs to. And that's great for Courtland Sutton. So I think with Drew Lock looking like the starter early in the year, if he can roll and show anything, like they want Drew Lock to be the guy, right? They don't want Teddy Bridgewater to be the guy. He's not the future of that franchise. They want Drew Lock to make that Josh Allen type of leap so that they know they have their franchise quarterback. So if he looks good at all early in the season, he's going to run with that job. I hope he does, because I think it's going to be great for Courtland Sutton. And look, this is a guy who was a top 24 wide receiver 2 years ago and was being drafted as a top 24 wide receiver last year before the injury. I think he gets back to that this year.
Yeah, absolutely could. Kind of stick to your guns here, right? You're on the Courtland Sutton train long before anybody else was on him, so got to stick to that. All right, so I've kind of changed course here. I wasn't as high on Calvin Ridley as I am now. I absolutely think now there's the upside for Calvin Ridley to finish as the top receiver in all of fantasy. I said about DK Metcalf, but I think it's actually a little more realistic for Ridley. This is a guy who, as it was last year, and this is with half a season Julio Jones, was 6th among all receivers in targets per game and 3rd in yards. Okay, if he's already 3rd in yardage with Julio there, what could happen now that he's the guy, basically the only guy, because they didn't add anybody else to receiver, just a rookie tight end who could be good, could be great, could be okay. We really don't know, but it's still a tight end. Let's face it, Calvin Ridley is going to see an uptick in targets and air yards. So I love Ridley's potential and the fact that he's going outside the top 5 receivers, but yet he's, I think, almost a lock to be a top 5 receiver. I don't get that. Ridley to me is the must-have. I love Metcalf. I love Ridley. Those are the guys I'm targeting when the time comes to take my first receiver, whether it's late in the first round or early in the second round. So Ridley's definitely somebody I'm getting higher and higher on as the season progresses. All right, Chris, one more must-have wide receiver.
Yeah, one of the biggest questions of the offseason has been who is going to be Trevor Lawrence's number 1 wide receiver, right? Because they already had DJ Chark. They drafted Laviska Shenault last year, and then they went out and signed Marvin Jones. Well, I think we got our answer in the first preseason game, and I think it's Marvin Jones. Because we saw in that game, yeah, Laviska Shenault and Marvin Jones were the starting wide receivers. Obviously, Chark out with a finger injury. I think that's going to be a big blow to him because he's going to miss probably all the rest of training camp and not going to get that time with Trevor Lawrence that he needs. But when we did see these guys out there, what we saw was when they ran 2 wide receiver sets, it was Shenault and Marvin Jones. When they ran 1 wide receiver, 2 tight end sets, it was Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones was the guy who was always out there, and he was the guy who led the team in targets as far as when they played with Trevor Lawrence. And we saw Trevor Lawrence on a long 3rd down. You know, he moved around with that mobility, kept the play alive, and then he threw it down to Marvin Jones to get the first down. I think Marvin Jones is going to be the one. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think Laviska Shenault will have a nice year. I still think Laviska Shenault will have a nice year. But considering Marvin Jones is being drafted 4 or 5 rounds after Laviska Shenault, I think that's amazing. I think he's a must-have guy because, again, I think he's going to be the number 1 guy for Trevor Lawrence. And we know Trevor Lawrence, he's going to have a great season. You talked about him in our must-have players. He's a must-have guy. So you want the number 1 wide receiver for a must-have quarterback, and I believe that's going to be Marvin Jones.
I'm trying to get there. I'm still about Shenault. I think he might be the main target, but I see what you're saying. I see Marvin Jones, kind of taking the mantle there. It's still early, but yeah, definitely gonna have to be ready to pivot, right? You always have to be ready to pivot positions. So we'll see. Now, somebody who I know we both have been high on throughout the preseason, Darnell Mooney. We love Allen Robinson. We know there's no question he's an absolute stud. Who's the wide receiver 2 firmly next to him? It's Mooney. Who's the wide receiver 3? Nobody. Nobody that matters, really. They just ditched Anthony Miller just to ditch him. You have a random assortment of guys like Javon Wims and Damiere Byrd, who aren't really going to be consequential in this passing game. So Mooney is going to be a really strong wide receiver 2 for Andy Dalton or Justin Fields, whoever it is. We've seen what Justin Fields looks capable of. I really think he's going to be a strong quarterback in this league very soon. Mooney kind of showed up last year despite that quarterback carousel that they had going on. So absolutely should get better. Again, it was tough to be a rookie last year, right? They kind of missed training camp and opportunities to be in person with the coaches. So the fact that, as a later round pick out of Tulane, not a, big prospect, honestly, coming into the league, to do what he did and claim that number 2 spot and now get an upgrade at quarterback and now have less competition for targets. I mean, really, this is a guy that we're probably not high enough on. So definitely love Mooney, especially the fact that he is being slept on to some extent still. All right, guys, more must-have wide receivers. Don't forget to check out our must-have running backs and must-have players. All of that is available on this channel. Again, we're here all throughout the preseason and draft season to help you prepare and, of course, win your league. All right, thanks for watching.